Once upon a time, in the heart of a quiet village surrounded by dense woods and rolling hills, I lived a life of questions. My name is Sam. I wasn't special by any means, but I was driven by one burning desire to uncover the real secret behind happiness and success. People whispered about a wise old monk named Master Sito, who lived in a small hut at the edge of the village. Some claimed he could see the future. Others said he had faced death and laughed. One morning, curiosity overtook me. I decided to find him. As I approached his worn-out cottage, the air seemed to shift. Time slowed. Birds fell silent. The bamboo door creaked open before I even knocked, and there he stood, the legend himself. Master Sito, old but glowing, eyes full of mischief. "So, you seek the secret to happiness and success?" he asked with a voice like wind over gravel. I nodded earnestly, my heart thudding. He chuckled softly, and after a pause that felt like an eternity, he said, "Very well, young one, but first, complete a simple task." I braced myself for anything. "You must go to the village market," he said, his eyes locked on mine. "Find the biggest, juiciest watermelon you can. Then carry it on your head and walk through the village without letting it fall." I blinked in disbelief. Was this a joke, carrying a watermelon on my head? But I had come too far to question him. Without a word, I nodded. He smiled and waved me off. As I turned to leave, I felt the weight of his gaze follow me. Something told me this task was more than it seemed. The market was lively as always, vendors shouting prices, children running around, aromas of spices thick in the air. But I wasn't distracted. I scanned every stall, seeking the perfect fruit, and then I saw it, a monstrous watermelon, shining like emerald under the sun. The vendor raised an eyebrow as I inspected it, clearly puzzled by my choice. "Planning a feast?" he joked. I shook my head and paid him. Balancing it on my head, I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment that would lead me either to mockery or to wisdom. I stepped into the cobbled street, heart racing. The watermelon wobbled dangerously. Every tiny shift in balance felt like the earth beneath me was tilting. People turned to look. A group of children burst out laughing. An old man pointed, amused. Soon, laughter surrounded me. Not cruel, but full of confusion, joy, and curiosity. The further I walked, the heavier the fruit felt, and the louder the cheers became. Some clapped, others mimicked my wobbling steps. A dog started following me, barking in rhythm with my uneven pace. It was a parade I hadn't signed up for. Every step was a test. The watermelon threatened to slip off with every gust of wind, every uneven stone, every curious nudge from villagers. My neck ached, my knees trembled. But something within me refused to quit. I imagined Master Sito's smile. I could almost hear him chuckling already. Halfway through the village, I passed the baker who laughed so hard he nearly dropped a tray of bread. Kids ran alongside me, throwing flower petals. Somehow, despite the chaos, I found myself smiling. Something strange was happening. I felt lighter, stronger, even joyful, but I wasn't done yet. After what felt like hours, though it had only been 20 minutes, I reached Master Sito's hut, soaked in sweat, neck burning. The watermelon still sat proudly on my head. I gently lowered it to the ground, sighing in relief. My legs shook, my breath came in ragged gasps, but I had done it. I knocked once, and the door opened instantly. Master Sito looked at me, then at the watermelon, then back at me. His eyes sparkled, and then, to my shock, he burst out laughing. Not just a chuckle, full roaring, tears in his eyes laughter. For a moment, I stood frozen, confused, and embarrassed. I had just endured the most bizarre, difficult walk of my life, and he was laughing? But as I looked into his eyes, I saw no mockery, only joy. "Oh, young one," he finally said, wiping away a tear, "you did well, truly." Still giggling, he pointed to the watermelon. "That ridiculous fruit is life." I stared at him, puzzled. "The secret you seek. It was hidden in that walk. You were challenged, you were laughed at, yet you kept going. That is the way to happiness and success." I didn't know what to say. I replayed the journey in my head, the laughter, the near falls, the sense of vulnerability, and somehow it all made sense now. Life wasn't about avoiding difficulties or waiting for perfect conditions. It was about balance, perseverance, and laughing through the awkwardness. "Life will throw many melons at your head," Master Sito grinned, "but if you can carry them with a smile, you'll be unstoppable." I found myself laughing too, from exhaustion, from relief, but mostly from the strange truth in his words. It was so absurd, and yet so powerful. That day changed me. Forever. I walked away from Master Sito's hut not with a manual for success or a step-by-step plan, but with something far more valuable, a mindset. I had faced humiliation, challenge, and pain, and come out laughing. Suddenly, every obstacle in life didn't seem so terrifying. Whenever hardship came, I pictured myself wobbling through the village with that giant watermelon, and I smiled. I realized that happiness wasn't a destination. It was in how you walked and how you laughed through the chaos. That was only the beginning of my journey. Weeks passed, but that lesson never left me. Every time I faced a challenge, be it failure, rejection, or uncertainty, I imagined that ridiculous watermelon balancing on my head. I began to understand something deeper. The villagers didn't mock me to be cruel. They saw something brave in my effort. Life, I realized, isn't about being perfect or graceful. It's about daring to look foolish for something meaningful. That walk had stripped away my ego, my fear of judgment. It forced me to be fully present, focused, and unafraid of laughter, whether directed at me or with me. One rainy evening, I faced a real test. My father fell ill, suddenly and severely. The doctors were unsure, my family panicked, bills mounted, fear took root. I felt helpless, lost. But then I remembered Master Sito's laugh, how even in absurdity he saw light. I took a breath. I told myself, balance the watermelon. I began managing appointments, raising funds, staying up nights, never breaking. People watched me, some doubted me, but I didn't care. I smiled through it all. Deep down, I trusted that strength wasn't loud or flashy. It was quiet, steady, even silly sometimes. Master Sito visited me during that time. He didn't say much. He just placed a smaller watermelon on the table and grinned. A reminder, he whispered, and then he left. That gesture hit me harder than words ever could. The monk hadn't forgotten me. He still believed I had more to learn, more to carry. That tiny fruit sat in our kitchen, untouched, for months. It became a symbol for my entire family. We'd glance at it during hard moments and smirk. Watermelon strength? My little sister called it. We laughed through the darkest storms together. Over time, people began coming to me for advice. They asked how I stayed calm, how I kept smiling. I never gave them complex answers. I told them about the monk, the village, the market, and the heavy fruit on my head. Some laughed, some didn't understand. But the ones who listened closely, something changed in them. They began walking differently, holding themselves with a certain awkward grace. They started facing life with a strange mix of courage and humor. And when they stumbled, they smiled. I realized I had become something I never expected, a quiet teacher. Years later, I returned to Master Sito's hut. It was just as I remembered. The path was overgrown, the door creaked louder, but the magic still lingered in the air. I found him in the garden, laughing softly at a bird pecking at his robe. He looked older, frailer, but his eyes still danced with mischief. "You're still carrying it, aren't you?" he asked. I nodded. "Every day." He chuckled and motioned for me to sit. "You've learned well, but remember, the secret to happiness isn't in carrying the watermelon. It's in not being afraid to drop it sometimes." That line hit me like thunder. I had spent so long trying to balance, to stay strong, to carry the weight without faltering. But in that moment, I understood. Real freedom wasn't in perfection. It was in letting go. Sometimes, joy came from letting the watermelon fall, laughing at the mess, and starting again. Master Sito's eyes twinkled as if he read my thoughts. "Even the greatest balance must occasionally wobble," he said. "That's what makes the journey human." I laughed with him, this time without any confusion, only pure gratitude. My teacher had just given me one last gift. On the walk back home, I didn't rush. I breathed deeply, felt the wind on my skin, noticed every rustling leaf. Life had changed. I had changed. I wasn't chasing happiness anymore. I was living it. And the beauty of it all, it was never about grand achievements or perfect moments. It was in the stumbles, the laughs, the awkward balance of things we carry, and the grace in how we carry them. That watermelon? It was no longer a burden. It had become a compass, a reminder to walk lightly, laugh often, and never fear looking ridiculous. Eventually, I began telling my story to the world. At first, just to friends, then small gatherings, then to audiences I never imagined speaking to. Each time, people leaned in. They laughed, cried, saw themselves in the journey. The watermelon became a symbol far beyond the village, a symbol of resilience, humor, humility. People started carrying their own versions, figuratively and literally. Some brought melons to my talks as jokes. Others shared stories of their struggles, their balancing moments. I realized that everyone, in their own way, is walking through a village with something wobbly on their head. And you, listening now, might be in that moment. Maybe you're facing something that feels impossible, heavy, awkward, exposed. People may be watching, laughing, or doubting. But let me tell you this. Don't stop. Keep walking. Smile through it. Embrace the absurdity. Because the path you're on, with all its bumps and slips, is shaping you into something stronger. And when you reach the end of that journey, you'll look back, not with shame, but with pride. The watermelon might fall. That's okay. What matters is that you dared to carry it in the first place. So whenever life throws its weight on your shoulders, remember me, the watermelon, and that old laughing monk in the forest. Life isn't a race or a performance. It's a hilarious, messy, wobbly walk through curious eyes and unexpected applause. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep going, with courage, with kindness, and a whole lot of laughter. That, my friend, is the real secret. And now, it's yours to carry. Just don't forget to smile along the way.